Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session today. I'm Sauraveshwar Sen, Chief Mentor and Founder at Catalyst, welcoming all of you to the session concerning career in mental health by Megha Saraugi. Before we start introducing Megha to all of you, I would like to uh, make a comment with the session that when possibly last week, me and Megha, we put together the plan for this session. I don't think we really discussed the fact that 10th October was the World Mental Health Day. And it was such a coincidence to plan it in this time. And it fell nicely with the overall consciousness of for all of us, observing World Mental Health Day, observing the global movement, looking at the holistic approach of mental health. It is indeed important, as we all know, to review our progress in the mental health sector definitely once a year. But unfortunately, the issues around the mental health sector, they don't happen yearly. Uh, Neither do they happen monthly, nor weekly or bi-weekly. Possibly it's happening every day, if not every minute or every hour. And that is the type of demand the mental health sector has created in the market. I am very consciously using these terminologies, mental health sector and the market, keeping in the context that it has been long that mental health and psychology was just a subject in our textbooks, right? If people who have studied it understand how it branched out of pure sciences, actually, which a lot of us fail to understand and possibly apply. And that is exactly where we at Catalyst work. We support templates that create the supply end of issues. We try to create professionals who are working very closely to the human development sector, catering to social work, catering to public policy, mental health professionals like Megha, and we try to bring in the deep understanding of how a multi-sectoral approach is going to be the key in our approach to create a better quality of life. Since 2011, we at Catalyst have been instrumental in orienting and supporting people with opportunities in the development sector. We have done that majorly by training, guiding, and mentoring students from school, from colleges, for master's and bachelor's programs in mental health, in social work, in public policy, in public affairs, development studies, and so on and so forth, human resource management across. And many of our students, like Megha, have gone ahead in professional capacities, working for creating constructive change to the society, trying to understand the pulse of it and respond accordingly, being dynamic with their approach. Megha, as we all know, and you must have seen our campaign, is a psychiatric social worker, now a consultant with the Indian Naval Hospital ship Aswini. This I found very interesting and exciting prospect that Megha has got into now. Megha pursued her master's in social work in counseling from TIS Guwahati. During her bachelor's in sociology from St. Xavier's College, she was our student in Catalyst in 2015-16. And that's one very important aspect that we want to highlight, that being from a background of sociology and possibly not pursuing psychology per se in terms of the requirements of the degree programs, Megha is working in a professional capacity in the sector of mental health. Throughout this session, Megha would be discussing and sharing her experience in counseling, rural development, self-help group management, psychiatric diagnosis, psychosocial interventions with all of us. And from my end in Catalyst, we would expect that this session is just not a mere listening session. And that is the reason we laid out the rules very straight, fair and square, that we want all of you to participate equally with your ideas, equally with your views and opinion, so that this session paves the way towards some actionable measures that we can take in the near future. So I would request all participants, feel free as Megha speaks and presents to use your chat box to share any queries or questions that we can address during the course of the session. Of course, there would be a dedicated Q&A whenever Megha wants that to happen. And you will be allowed to speak with your mic. You will be allowed to discuss more elaborately, right? So thank you once more for joining in. Megha, I can't thank you enough to take out your time of your schedule and to be with all of us and to share your story so that collectively we can create a better future. Over to you, Megha. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for the very, very warm welcome, and a big thank you to Catalyst for this opportunity. Hello to everyone present here today. Like Sir said, I am Megha, and I'm currently working with the Indian Naval Hospital ship in Mumbai as a psychiatrist social work consultant. And I will be talking about a career in mental health through a non-medical approach from the lens of a non-medical perspective. And it would be great if all of you could turn on your videos and speak and contribute to the discussion, because I would like it to be more of an interactive session rather than me just talking and making it a little boring. So yes, and before I begin, just heads up, trying to make it a little interesting for all of you. So before I start discussing about a career in mental health, how about we have a quick pop quiz for everyone? And you don't have to type in your answers if you want. If you're comfortable that way, then you all can do it. But I would prefer if you all could turn on your videos and respond to the questions that I have lined up. Does that sound all right for everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for the acknowledgement, ma'am. Okay, I hope I'm audible. If there are any audio issues, please do let me know beforehand. So I'm moving to the first question. It's a very quick pop quiz, and hopefully it will allow you to have an insight into what exactly it is that we're going to be discussing today. So here comes the first question. Can everyone see the presentation? The question is, what is mental health? And you have 4 options before you. Is it the absence of mental illnesses? Is it a state of emotional, psychological, and social well-being? Is it all of the above or none of the above? You can just let me know what option you all feel is most appropriate.
Good evening, Megha ma'am. This is Sunaina Roy Chaudhary.
Good evening. Hello.
I think that it is state of emotional, psychological being.
Okay.
I feel it is C. Hi.
Hi. Hello. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other? Would anybody else like to answer this question?
Hello, this is Sangashil. Ma'am, the answer is C, all of the above.
Okay.
Hello, this is Artha, and I believe the answer to this is B.
Okay.
Hello, this is Sangeeta. The answer to the question is C, all of the above.
Okay. Thank you, Sangeeta. All right. So moving on to the answer, it's C, because according to the World Health Organization definition, it is not only the absence of mental illnesses, which means that to some extent it is the absence of mental illnesses, but it is also a state of emotional, psychological, and social. Okay. The next question is, which of these are mental health professionals? A psychiatrist, psychiatric social worker, clinical psychologist, psychiatric nurse, or all of the above?
Hello,
E, all of the above.
The answer is all of the above.
I
Okay.
think the answer is all of the above.
Yeah,
Mhm.
all of the above.
Star is saying Mega, even we feel it's all of the above.
Okay. Thank you.
Going with the majority, all of the above.
I guess that's how it works. Yes, the answer is all of the above. All four of these are considered to be mental health professionals. According okay. Anyone with a degree in psychology or social work is a mental health professional. Is it true, false, or are you not sure?
Not sure. That is why we are in this session.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
but you can obviously make a guess. I gave not sure for
It's not true. That's what I feel.
You are an example before us.
okay. Would that mean that you're trying to say it's true or
It's true.
okay?
Ma'am, I think the answer is true.
Are there any more takers? Do we have any more responses?
Yeah, I think the answer is true.
Okay, so the answer is actually false. Anyone with a basic degree in psychology or social work is not a mental health professional. There are set guidelines that we have for the definition of mental health professionals, particularly according to the new Mental Health Care Act of 2017. And for someone with a non-medical background, you will require, and which I will be discussing later on. But for this, the answer is currently false. Okay. Moving on, there's no medication for mental illnesses. They're all placebos. True or false?
False.
Yeah, I
False.
think I should eliminate option C from here because I do not want people to be answering not sure.
Ma'am, it is
Ma'am,
B.
it's false.
False.
B
False,
false,
ma'am.
according to me.
False. B.
Do we have any more responses?
Ma'am, B false.
Ma'am,
No, no,
B.
no.
Correct.
Ma'am, B. False.
Correct. It's false. There is treatment. There are medications for specific mental illnesses, and they're not all placebo. Unlike the common notion that most people have, because and this is probably because we always feel that mental illnesses are fake. They do not exist. It has been the preconceived notion since times immemorial. And I think I put in this question to make you understand that medication for mental illnesses exists as much as it exists for any other illness that an individual may undergo. A flu, for example. Okay. The next question is clinical psychologist and counseling psychologist are the same.
Ma'am, I think the answer is false.
Okay.
Yeah, false. They both are same.
Ma'am, false.
It is false, ma'am, because the clinical psychologist, I think they can prescribe medicine, but counseling psychologist cannot. I think.
No, psychologists cannot prescribe medications. Counseling psychologists deal with the day-to-day problems like the adjustment issues, but clinical deals with the major severe illness of mental. So
Correct. Can I please have your name?
yeah, Anjali.
Thank you so much, Anjali. You just cleared the query that Mr. Abdul had. And yes, so clinical psychologists and counseling psychologists are not the same. Then again, there are educational qualification differences here. And no, a clinical psychologist cannot prescribe medicines. That is something that only a psychiatrist can do, given that they have an MBBS degree and that they've studied medicine basically. Okay. Moving on. A mental health team comprises of number one, psychiatrist, psychiatric social worker, occupational therapist, clinical psychologist, psychiatric nurse, and all of the above.
Ma'am, all of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
You can pick multiple options over here. You don't have to select one. It's a team. So I'm looking for specific answers. Would it be all of
Ma'am,
the
all
above?
of the above, I think.
Ma'am,
All of
all
the
of
above.
the above.
All of the above is the answer.
Okay. Anybody else?
Ma'am,
I'm
it is
sorry,
all of the above.
I'm unable to see the answers that are being posted in text because I'm on presentation mode at the moment. But you can jump in, speak up, turn on your videos and speak up. Even if you're not comfortable with your videos, just turn on your mic and speak up.
All of the above.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so the answer is not all of the above because a mental health team comprises of 4 professionals essentially: a psychiatrist, a psychiatric social worker, a clinical psychologist, and a psychiatric nurse. An occupational therapist they are a part of the treatment procedure, but they do not essentially are involved in. They're not essentially involved in the team in particular. Then you need to have a bachelor's degree in psychology or social work or MBBS to become a mental health professional. And read the question very carefully, please. It says you need to have a bachelor's degree in psychology or social work or have an MBBS to become a mental health professional.
True,
or
ma'am.
false?
True.
True.
Ma'am, I think the answer is false.
Okay, who is that? Can
Ma'am,
I
Ma'am,
false.
have,
Sangeeta.
sorry, Anvita? Is that correct?
Ma'am, Sangeeta.
Sangeeta. Okay, Sangeeta.
Ma'am, I
And
also
why do you
feel
think?
it's false.
Yes, ma'am, I could not
Every
hear you. Can you repeat your question?
every
For the
institute has a
ones,
different approach. Like some
okay,
institute wants a bachelor degree and some institute doesn't. Even
okay.
there is like bachelor's degree, you should have a 6 paper. Some institute want that. Some even
Mhm.
go for 3 paper subject in psychology.
Mhm.
So there are
Ma'am,
different.
Ma'am Sangeeta here, ma'am, I think
Yes.
in order to become a mental health professional, it's necessary for someone in psychology or social work to have a master's degree and
Okay.
preferably an MPhil degree too. But then this MPhil degree has been scrapped off recently.
Yes.
So I am not aware of the recent updates, but like before that, MPhil was necessary according to my knowledge.
Mhm. Correct. Okay. Thank you so much, Sangeeta. You're absolutely correct. You do not need a bachelor's degree in psychology or social work or have an MBBS degree for that matter in order to become a mental health professional. Even if you have a bachelor's degree in the field of commerce or science, you can very conveniently pursue a mental health professional degree during your master's. So I've had a lot of friends who had say chemistry or physics or even commerce for that matter, BCom, BBA for that matter, in their bachelors, and then they went on to pursue mental health as a profession during their master. Okay, so this was it for the pop questions, I guess. Quickly going to be sharing, like I said, I do not want this to be me talking and all of you all listening. I would really appreciate it if you could make it an interactive session. Please raise your hands or you can interrupt me in between. It's not a problem at all. If you have any questions, if you have any queries during the slide or right after the slide, you can stop me midway and you can ask me questions. I think that way it will be more interactive and you might you might enjoy it a little more than it, not to make it sound boring. Okay. So, to give you a brief about the mental health profession, it includes a plethora of professionals from various fields. And in one of the questions where I did ask you previously, who do you think are mental health professionals? And we gave answers such as psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, psychiatric social workers, and psychiatric nurses. The profession itself includes the team includes these 4 professions essentially, but there are other para professionals who do get involved in the field of mental health to offer treatment to individuals suffering from mental illnesses. These could involve occupational therapists or even vocational therapists for that matter. And I'm sure there are a lot of other professions that, such as counselors, therapists trained in a particular form of therapy, but they are not essentially termed as mental health professionals, right? So it need not only be a medical professional or someone with a degree in psychology. Like I said, someone with a degree in social work as well can take up the mental health professional later on, can become a mental health professional later on in life. In fact, people pursuing public health, mental health is a very crucial aspect of public health as well. And it comprises one of the major modules in the field of public health. So it is not necessary that you need to have a bachelor's degree in mental health or psychology or social work for that matter in order to become a mental health professional. So quickly brushing up on like a couple of skills that someone who would want to take up the profession of mental health could possess. And it need not be all of these skills. You can eventually develop these skills over time, learn, because that's how you develop skills. You don't come up with skills from your mother's womb while you're still in her womb. You do not. You're not born with those. You learn from your experiences. You learn from, most importantly, you learn from other people's experiences, and I think that is more important over here. So a couple of skills that are expected from a mental health professional, are expected that they would possess, are empathy. Empathy is there any takers on what empathy is? Any idea on what empathy could be?
It's like knowing others' situation, like understanding others' perspective,
Right.
others' problem.
Okay.
The ability
Anjali,
to
was it?
relate emotionally with others.
Okay. Correct.
It's like placing oneself into others' shoes and understanding their situation.
Absolutely. Can you please tell me your name?
Ma'am Sangeeta.
Sangeeta, correct, absolutely. And this is exactly, if we try and explain what empathy is to a regular individual, to someone who has no idea of mental health, then we would use this phrase in particular. It is putting yourself in some other person's boots to understand their situation. And that is exactly what empathy is. And that is where it differs from sympathy, where you do not pity the individual. You understand, genuinely try and understand what the individual is undergoing. Active listening. Active listening is not just about listening, it's also about knowing when to respond, how to respond to situations. And given that there might be breaks in the conversation, then a client or a patient would expect you to get back to them from the very point that they had left off. So active listening has to be is one of the major clinical skills that is expected from a mental health professional. Communication, of course, for it, talking is a very crucial part, and having clear-cut conversations. Freud said that communication is the key to any sound relationship, and that goes for a therapeutic relationship between a client and a therapist as well. Critical thinking. Now, why do you think critical thinking is important? Is critical thinking important, or can we just think of it emotionally? Because why we're mental health professionals, our focus is on emotions. Is emotional thinking enough, or do we also need critical thinking?
Ma'am.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am. This is Sunaina Roy Chaudhary.
Hi, Sanana. Yes.
Ma'am, I think critical thinking is required more because we need to be critical sometimes. Like in order to understand somebody else's emotion, so we have
Right.
to think critically.
Correct. Correct.
Because of that.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Also,
Hi,
I
this is
think that
Pratisha.
critical.
Yes. Srishti? Yes, please go ahead.
Critical rather than own, because might have a counter effect on themselves also, and critical thinking would help them.
I'm sorry, you're going in and out. Srishti, is it?
There's some network issue, I guess.
Yes, no worries. Srishti, I can hear you now. Can you repeat your answer, please?
Okay. Yeah, I was saying that critical thinking would help us be more practical rather than being just emotional. And a mental health professional, it is important to, to understand others also, and at the same time be practical, because otherwise if we are very emotional, it might have a counter effect on us while we are treating the other person.
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so critical thinking, why is it important? Because when the person is telling the problems, it's important to observe, evaluate the situation. If you are too emotional, it's difficult. Critically thinking on the problems and then looking at the solutions, or where the problem lies. Because when the person says not
क्या बोल रहे
necessary
हो?
कि यही मैं,
तो एदिके से কথা বলো না। তো এখানে
yeah, okay.
Yes,
So I
Anjali.
was, yeah, so I was saying ki when a person says not necessary ki usi line mein there is a problem, we have to evaluate the situation, because it can be from the past experience. So we need to observe those clues also.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
So yeah, I was saying, being a mental health professional, I guess it's more important to not suggest answers, but then take out or take out solutions uh, from within, from the person itself who is dealing with the problem. So which is why, like you said, that active listening is important, and from those points, inferring more open-ended questions is also important, which is why critical thinking comes.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to contribute? All right.
Can I say
So,
something?
yes, please.
Yeah.
Nilima.
I feel it is like, understanding what the other person is saying, taking the concept, applying it in a different way, and then, it's a kind of observation, and you put your experience also into it. You reflect the thoughts about the person, and then, probably give a good reasoning to what he's thinking, and all put together. Like, it's just understanding the concept from various corners, various factors, and that's when you will be able to generate a proper response to what he's actually undergoing.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
That's what I feel.
Okay. So yes, critical thinking becomes a key point over here. Why do we go to a therapist when we know that we have, say, a strong support system back at home? Why do we go up to them? Because we know that the support system that we have back at home, we do have an emotional connection with them, which might get in the way of us thinking rationally when we are looking at solving a problem. Right. So even if I go to, let's say, my father or my mother, there will be a point where their emotions would get in the way and interrupt my decision making ability and not allow me to think rationally. And that is why we go to a therapist. Why? Because a therapist will always be able to give us a third person perspective or a second person perspective for that matter. And they will be unbiased, they will not be judgmental when it comes to giving those kind of solutions to the client or the patient. And that is where critical thinking becomes important. Right. So reflection, interpersonal skills, again, this all of these communication, active listening, reflection, interpersonal skills are all interrelated, and there is a lot more to it, but I'm not going to delve deep into it. Problem solving skills, again, it's relative to critical thinking, because when there is a problem, you need to have a practical approach towards it rather than thinking about it from a more emotional perspective, which might have a greater impact. But at the end of the day, we need something that is more durable and lasting. Therapists also are expected to be slightly assertive, and you have to trust your instinct at all times. There might be times when you may not be sure of how to go about a situation or how to come up with a solution to a problem that your client is having. That is why I would also like to add that your experience from your life, your personal experience, is what matters over here as well. And lastly, a sense of humor. I mean, who likes a boring conversation with a therapist, isn't it? You go up to a therapist to uplift your mood. And if the therapist is absolutely boring, if they're like sleepy in front of you, if they're not talking to you well, if they're not establishing that rapport with you, and if, sometimes you just want that light-headed conversation with a therapist that will make you feel lively, alive, and rejuvenated. And it'll make you feel like you've stepped into sunshine all of a sudden from all the darkness that you've been experiencing, for that matter. So yes, these are a couple of things that any therapist or a mental health professional is expected to possess. Once again, if we have any questions so far, please feel free to speak up in the middle of the conversation.
Hello.
Yes, do we have?
Ma'am?
Yes.
Ma'am, this is Sunaina Roy Chaudhary.
Yes.
Ma'am, actually, I have a question.
Yes.
That is like, ma'am, sometimes these days, due to the pandemic, many of us have stress regarding like some result, like our results haven't been declared or things like that,
Right.
or there are many things in the periphery that makes us a little stressed more. Regarding life related problems and something personal problems and things like that. So ma'am, how to de-stress ourselves from those problems?
Okay, thank you for the question, Sanana. Just, I would love to answer that question, but how about we get back to you with this? Because today we're only focusing on how to make a career in mental health profession, but would love to get back to you with this if that's okay. Because I understand that this is one of the major concerns going on right now with the pandemic stepping in and hampering all of our lives. But I think we would probably need to have a detailed conversation over this. Is that okay, Sunana? Can we stick to the agenda for today?
Sunaina has answered. She's fine with that.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So moving on to who can become a mental health professional. Again, this is a repetition of what was asked in the pop quiz before. So since we've already done the quiz, can someone jump in and tell me what they've understood? Who is it exactly do you think can become a mental health professional?
Anyone from any field could pursue a degree on psychology, master's degree on psychology or master's degree on social work or counseling, and can become a mental health professional.
Okay. All right.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Sanjeev. I think the person who is having a lot of experience, hands-on experience and presence of mind, which is very important, because if the person himself is healthy with body and mind and everything, then he can definitely treat others.
Okay. Just to be a little clear, we're talking about mental health professional, which is a very technical term that I'm trying to use over here. Okay, can we recollect what were the mental health professions that we discussed? How many were there?
Ma'am, 4.
Correct.
4 of them?
And they were?
Ma'am, psychiatrist, clinical psychologist, psychiatric social worker, and psychiatric nurse.
Correct. And they make up the mental health team, right? So in order to become a mental health professional, and there are guidelines by the new Mental Health Care Act of 2017, every individual is expected to have a certain degree to be termed as a mental health professional. So what do you think the degree for a psychiatrist would be?
The degree for a psychiatrist is MD Psychiatry after MBBS.
Correct. Absolutely. Correct answer. And what about a clinical psychologist?
It is MA or MSc clinical psychology followed by an MPhil probably.
Correct. Yes. Probably no. It's the correct answer.
Okay.
MPhil in clinical psychology, yes. And how about a psychiatric social worker?
It is MSW followed by MPhil, or just MSW will do? I am confused about that.
Okay. Do we have anyone else who knows the answer to this question? Does anybody know whether we need, is an MSW enough to be termed as a mental health professional, or do we need an MPhil in psychiatric social work to be termed as a mental health professional?
I believe MSW is enough to be a professional in psychiatric health.
No,
Okay,
I personally feel that MSW plus an MPhil would do the job.
Plus an MPhil, are you saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's this? Can I please have your name?
Ram Megham.
Yes. So yes, correct. Anybody who has taken up MSW, it will not be enough for them to be termed as a mental health professional. You will need an MPhil degree in psychiatric social work, which is a 2-year course, in order to be termed as a mental health professional. And how about psychiatric nurse?
Ma'am, I have a doubt then.
Yes, Sangeeta.
Ma'am, in the beginning of the session, I got to know that you have done your honors in sociology and then your master's in social work in counseling. So, if I go by that, then you do not have an MPhil degree, but then you are also practicing as a psychiatric social work consultant. So, ma'am, these two are
Sangeeta.
like.
Is it Sangeeta?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
No, so Sangeeta, I completed my MSW back in 2018, and after that, I joined a course in psychiatric social work, MPhil in psychiatric social work from Manipal. So I have a MPhil degree in psychiatric.
Oh, that wasn't said about you, so I got confused.
No worries. No worries.
Hello, ma'am. Sorry. Hello, ma'am. I am Sangashil. So I am doing MA Development from Ajim Premji University, and I am a peer supporter in Ajim Premji University. So is there any chances, मतलब क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजिस्ट के लिए कुछ चांसेस है या फिर अदर कोई वर्क?
हाँ, जरूर देखिए चांसेस तो है, गिवन दैट आप अगर इफ यू आर कंफर्टेबल विद परस्यूइंग मास्टर्स in psychology, clinical psychology, because I don't think developmental studies से आप MPhil में जा सकते हैं. So if you're willing to take up a course on psychology, which is a 2-year MA course in psychology, which is a 2-year course, then उसके बाद आप MPhil के लिए जा सकते हैं.
I am also peer supporter, ma'am. So will it help?
That will help to your skill and your knowledge, but as far as an educational qualification is concerned, I don't think so.
Okay, ma'am.
But
Thank you.
it will definitely add to your ability as capability as a mental health professional.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me, this is Ashna here. So I had this one question that there is also this one degree called HD. So if we have like a master is human development, so Mumbai University also has this degree. Like it's like said that after you do your BSW, you can also do like instead of doing an MSW because you already have a social work kind of a background, you can also do HD and then you get into counseling field from there itself. So if we have like HD and then like is it important? Like I'm a little confused about then how do you get into the mental health profession from there if someone does a master's in human development then.
Okay. So as far as my knowledge is concerned, Ashna, there are courses in human development that are being offered by a lot of universities in Calcutta as well as Bombay. And human development, however, if you do a master's in human development, I am not too sure if you can apply for an MPhil in psychology or psychiatric social work, clinical psychology or psychiatric social work, because they have set criteria. So one of the issues that I faced myself was when we're doing social work, when we're doing our MSW, what happens is there are certain specializations in MSW as well. So there might be community organization and development practices, there might be public health, there is counseling, there is livelihoods and social entrepreneurship, there is women and children. There are a lot of fields that universities offer, and TIS for that matter offers a plethora of specializations in the field of MSW. So when I went on to apply for my MPhil in psychiatric social work, there were universities that required me to pursue an MA social work with specialization in medical and psychiatric social work. Right. So there are certain universities you can try and apply. I know for a fact that Amity University offers a course, allows you to take up MPhil if you have a bachelor's or a master's in human development, but you can still look it up. In fact, why don't I look it up and get back to you with this sometime later?
Sure, ma'am. Another thing is that what exactly is the difference in MSW in mental health and MSW in counseling? Like, what will be your career perspectives later after doing, both of these separate, specializations in
Right. So what happens is, so even public health, for that matter, if you see, has a module in mental health. So these are all interrelated fields. But when it comes to you taking up specializations, that's when it makes a difference. So, for instance, I had an MSW in counseling. It was easier for me to get into an MPhil psychiatric social work course. But for someone with say MSW in public health, some universities may not allow them. You're asking me about MSW in mental health. As far as my knowledge is concerned, yes, you can apply for psychiatric social work later on with an MSW in mental health. So the career path, the prospects would probably be very similar at the end of the road. It's just that the modules that are being taught to you by the university, and even for say, even when you're pursuing MSW in counseling from University A, and if there's another person pursuing the same course from University B, there might be a lot of difference in the way the pedagogy that they follow, in what they're teaching, in the syllabus for that matter. There will be a lot of similarity, and there will be a baseline for all universities to follow, but it's not mandatory for everybody to follow the same syllabus. So I think that is where there is a fine line between mental health and counseling over here. And the moment you step out of counseling, you are termed as a social work counselor. I am not sure you can do that for someone who has a degree with MA in mental health.
Ma'am, I have two questions. Should I
also have a
ask you later
Yes.
on?
No. Please shoot on.
Ma'am, the two questions that I have is, I am Sangeeta. I am pursuing masters in social work and from St. Xavier's University, Kolkata.
Okay.
And my specialization is family and child welfare. I actually wanted to take up health and mental health or medical or psychiatric social work,
Right.
but that wasn't being offered for our current batch of students. So I had to take something else. So, ma'am, will it be possible for me to shift to MPhil in psychiatric social work from family and child welfare?
Yes. So if you are pursuing an MSW, doesn't matter what field you're specializing in. There are some universities that would probably expect you to have medical and psychiatric social work as your specialization. But as far as my knowledge is concerned, most universities just want an MSW degree. They only
Okay.
require you to complete MSW.
Okay, ma'am. That is one. And the second doubt is, ma'am, with the NEP 2020, that now that the MPhil is done away with, ma'am, what will be the what are the challenges that we are going to face because there won't be any MPhil, and what is the new eligibility criteria to become a psychiatric social worker?
Right. So just to be clear over here, there is still no verdict on the NEP. There is no final verdict on the NEP yet. They are working on it. They have planned on scrapping off the non-professional courses first. But given that clinical psychology and psychiatric social work are professional courses, they're not academic courses. They are professional courses, and they're
Yes,
only
ma'am.
planning on scrapping off academic courses. So let's say if you want to pursue an MPhil in sociology, that might be a problem over here. But if you want to pursue an MPhil in psychiatric social work or clinical psychology, we still have a lot of time because the final verdict hasn't come out. And a lot of universities have already started the course for this year.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Can
Hi,
I
this is
doubt
Janice.
that suppose
Oh, should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yeah,
so
this is
suppose
Janice.
someone pursues masters in counts.
Srishti, why don't you go ahead,
Shall I
Srishti?
continue?
Yes, please, Srishti.
So suppose somebody pursues masters like MA in counseling and someone pursues MSW in counseling. So like what would be the difference in terms of job profile or the kind of work they do?
Right. So for someone who is pursuing, I just want to be clear, there is counseling psychology and there is social work counseling. Are you referring to those two courses, is it? Right. So
Yes.
counseling, yeah. So the main difference between counseling psychology and social work counseling would be social workers usually intervene in the community sector. Their outreach aspect is more in terms of responding to the community, whereas a counseling psychologist can essentially be involved with an individual or family for that matter. Can you hear me, Srishti? Am I audible?
So yes. Yes. So a
So the
counseling
intervention,
psychologist would have a broader perspective, if we have to say, in the terms of intervention. Like can work in
so
the community and also on individual basis.
no, so even someone with a mental health professional with a social work background can also work on an individual basis. It's not necessary for them to only work in the community. But this is what social workers specialize in. That doesn't, and so just to make it a little more clearer for you, even when someone is pursuing psychiatry, they are expected to get involved with the community. They do have community placements as well. It's a team that works together, and without one the other cannot fully function. It's not, I'm not saying that without one the other cannot function at all, but because it's a team, to get a holistic approach, to get a holistic view point of whatever issues the patient or the community is facing, we need all of them to team up together and work towards a common goal, and that is why we call it a mental health team.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. If you have any more queries, you can shoot on if I wasn't clear with the answer.
No, it's clear. I'm fine. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. What is the is the MSW recognized in European country or country like Australia?
Yes. In fact, there are universities. There are a lot of universities in Europe, Australia, US, New Zealand, for that matter, that offer a degree in MSW. So they're very well recognized, and they have they have very robust perspectives as well in a lot of those states. In fact, I would say that in a country like India, the development has been pretty gradual as compared to in the field of social work as compared to other nations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jainish got cut off. Will it be possible for you to
Yes,
repeat your question, Janish?
Yeah, hi, this is Janish. I just wanted to know that someone from a non-psychology background and want to pursue child psychology or parental psychology, and there are numerous courses, certified courses available in the market from different institutes, So can they establish a career from that background?
Yes, absolutely. There are organizations that employ individuals with specialized understanding or individuals who have done certificate courses in specific fields.
Okay.
So if you do not have a psychology background, you can always work as a consultant depending on what
Okay.
job profile the organization is expecting, is offering you.
Okay. Okay. And to set up their own, their own office or their own setup, then a degree of psychology is essential, right?
Yes, because that is what the RCI mandates,
Okay. Yeah.
the
Okay.
rehabilitation.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Hello. Yeah, hi, Mika. I have a few questions, actually two. Should I shoot it
Olampika.
right away or should
Yes.
we wait
Yes, please.
for the Q&A rounds?
No. I'm all yours. Please.
Yeah, okay. I come from one of those sad lots who finished their MPhils in 2014, which has been
Okay.
scrapped now.
Mhm.
So I did my MPhil in Women in Gender Studies. And since then, I have been working in various fields, especially in the development sector, which works at the intersections of gender, sexuality, and also a bit around mental health.
Mhm.
And what I would like to do is I actually want to focus more on the aspect of mental health, working as a mental health professional. So what would you suggest for a person like me who has had worked in that field? Like I have a work experience in that field, but my degree is a sister degree. It's in gender studies. And I also want a little more elaboration on your part on what is a psychiatric social worker, if I'm correct. Yeah, that's the term, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and how is it different from a community mental health worker? Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thank you for the question, Olampika. So to answer your first question, because given that you've done your MPhil in women studies, is it? Or is it women and child?
Women and gender studies, yeah.
Women
Yeah.
and gender studies. So women and gender studies, if you would, there are organizations, if you look up, there are a lot of organizations that offer you with placements and opportunities in this very field, especially gender specific organizations or organizations that are involved in the LGBTQ community, or child development communities, or even there are organizations for girl children as well. In particular, in fact, there are a lot of them in Calcutta themselves. I had the opportunity to work with one such organization called Sunlark, where they would rescue girl children from various areas, and a lot of them were from Bangladesh, migrants from Bangladesh who would flee from their country because of certain reasons. So these are the kind of organizations that actually look for professionals like you. So I think if you would step up and look for these places, and they're in dire need of these kind of professionals. Given that you were trained, you will have a better outlook, a different approach towards looking into these kind of crisis situations. And I think from your experience, you probably have a lot of understanding of crisis management and case management for that matter, a lot of which is taught in these MPhil courses, in these mental health profession courses. So that is to answer your first question. The second thing being, a psychiatric social worker is a mental health professional with a degree in MPhil, with an MPhil degree. So what happens is, you asked me how are they different from community workers. Now, they are actually called as community social workers as well, because that is their area of expertise. But with a regular community worker, what would happen is they are not entirely trained in the field of mental health. A psychiatric social worker is clinically trained to, let's start with, say, take history of a particular patient, understand what their problem is, understand what their complaints are, what their duration is, and finally make a diagnostic formulation which helps them come to a diagnosis. And there are various methods of making a diagnosis. The ICD gives you a different understanding of how to make a diagnosis. The DSM has a separate criteria. There are 3 axes in ICD, there are 5 axes in DSM. So it would, because obviously the states and the World Health Organization don't see eye to eye on all levels. So it would differ that way. A psychiatric social worker is very much capable of making a psychiatric diagnosis and planning a management plan for a treatment plan for the patient or the client that they are seeing. So this is one of the major differences between a community worker and a psychiatric social worker. It's the reason why we add psychiatric before our name, because we're clinically trained to deal with patients OPD wise, as well as in VIP inpatient as well as outpatient.
Yeah, thank you, Megha. Actually, that explains a lot of it. But maybe I don't know if this is the right platform, but maybe we can connect later. In terms of, I would like to know, since I've already done my MPhil, I'd like to know if there are, and I'm working right now. So I would like to know if there are places, especially in Bombay where I reside, or distance programs which would provide me, with a degree in psychiatric social work. Because I don't have the skill set and the tools right now.
Sure, absolutely. You can.
Although I have,
You can
yeah.
always
Please go ahead.
get in touch with me whenever you'd like. I'll share my contact details at the end of this webinar, and anybody who has any queries, please feel free to get in touch with me.
Great. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, do psychiatric social workers need to be registered in India, or right after their MPhil they can practice as psychiatric social workers?
Right. So this is one question I've genuinely been waiting for, because we all know that clinical psychologists have the RCI to get registered. Psychiatric social workers, as of now, they do not have a organization where they need to register, but there is the ISPSW, and right now all the psychiatric social workers and the team of psychiatric social workers at NIMHANS, they're all working on this organization called the Association for Psychiatric Social Workers. It will be a professional association. And eventually, in a couple of years, it will be a mandate for all psychiatric social workers with an MPhil degree to register with the organization, so that you get your own registration number. So as of now, if you ask me, I am registered under the ISPSW, which is the Institute for Social Work, Professional Social Work, and Indian Society for Professional Social Work. I'm so sorry. And they have given me a lifetime membership number, which I can use to show that I'm a practicing psychiatric social worker. Yeah, but to
Okay,
answer your
ma'am.
question,
Thank you
there is
so
no
much.
other registration for PSWs right now. This is voluntary.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hi, Megha.
Hello.
Hello.
Can I have your name, please?
Pratiksha. So I'm an educational professional, and I have been working with NGOs from quite some time now. And so I have keen interest in mental well-being area, and I wanted to pursue it, like being emotional well-being professional, emotional well-being facilitator. So I was thinking to pursue a degree in master's in family therapy and counseling from IGNOU.
Okay.
So doing that degree, can I again pursue MPhil with that degree, or is it valid to do a distance degree and then pursue MPhil?
Yes. So distance degree is not the problem over here. You can always go for distance education, but I feel that the course that you're talking about you will not be eligible to apply for an MPhil in either psychology or psychiatric social work. Not with this course. So if you plan on taking up, say, clinical psychology or counseling psychology, and then or social work for that matter, then you will be eligible to apply for an MPhil.
Okay, and like I said, I wanted to become a mental well-being facilitator. So in the area of in the developmental sector. So do I need to have a MPhil degree for that?
Okay, so that would depend on what organization you're planning on applying to and what the requirements of the organization are. A lot of organizations are okay with you having a master's degree in any form of mental health or psychology, or because there are various forms of psychological masters in psychology with specialization in a particular field, like forensic or sports for that matter. So that would all depend on the organization that you're looking at. Check with the organization what the requirement is, and maybe then that's how you can proceed further with your education
Okay.
qualification.
Okay, thank you.
So I think
Just-
Pratiksha, possibly Megha was pointing out to the fact that we were discussing where someone can facilitate maybe a aggregation of mental health issues, right? For a therapist.
Yeah.
Maybe, Pratiksha might be thinking of working in the capacity of a primary responder, or the first point of contact prior to a therapist. So yeah, I guess that would require more alignment, as Megha mentioned, to the type of opportunity we want to work with. So I think what we can do is, the questions have been truly enlightening. So we would allow Megha, if she has some points from her presentation, to be shared with all of us, and then we can do like a round of the session soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Just before I proceed, Pratiksha, there was one more thing you mentioned about focusing on the emotional aspects. There are a lot of specialized courses that are available. One, I know for a fact there is something called as the emotional focus therapy. So even if you do not have a degree in mental health or psychology or counseling or anything related to the field, you can take up a diploma course in any of these therapies that interest you and move on with it. So perhaps having those kind of diploma certificates can help you escalate in terms of the career.
Okay,
What
thank you so
is the
much.
diploma that you just mentioned, Megha? Could you please be clear?
There are a lot of diploma courses, certificate courses available. What I told Pratiksha about right now is called as emotion focused therapy. So there are organizations.
Emotion focused.
Yes, it's a form of therapy, and there are organizations that offer other forms of therapy as well. So there are people who take up CBT or REBT or other forms of therapy. EFT was because she mentioned that she's interested in emotions. I thought it would be insightful
Yeah,
for her.
exactly. I'm coming to that point only. So yeah, I don't want to intervene much, but I just wanted to say that will a diploma or a certificate course from any of these online courses which are being available right now can be of any help, because I come from a communications and journalism background. I worked in the fields, different field, that's not nowhere related to psychology or anything, but just out of my interest and curiosity, I enrolled at this webinar to understand more about this and also about the emotional well-being. So as you mentioned about emotion focused therapy, could you please specify more about this course? Is there any particular course that you can refer to?
So yes, there are a lot of organizations. There is Guwahati that offers certificate courses called Amritasmi, and then I'm sure in your town as well there would be a lot of such institutes where there are trained psychologists, clinical psychologists, or social workers, therapists for that matter, who will who put up workshops and certificate courses for specific therapy.
Okay.
Nilima, you
How
can,
does it?
Nilima, if you can kindly put in your requirement in an email to us,
Okay.
I believe that would be a more sorted approach, and it will help you more,
Sure.
right? I'm just putting
Yeah,
down the
sure.
email ID for you in the chat box. Thank you.
All
Megha, you
right.
can continue. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks.
Okay, so I think we've discussed in length, and this slide probably would you would probably understand this slide by now. Are all mental health professionals the same? It's similar to what we were discussing previously. There are psychologists, clinical psychologists, psychiatric nurses, and psychiatric social workers, and then there are other kinds of professionals like I mentioned, occupational and vocational therapists as well. So, and together they work in synergy to make sure that they can provide optimal services, quality services to any patient and their family that approach them. Okay, so how to prepare and what to expect. This is something that is very, very important for people who want to pursue a future in who see a future in the field of mental health. First of all, stay updated about the entrance examinations. Very important, because I've seen a lot of people skip deadlines because they're not sure. Even if you're not sure, just go for it, apply for it. Once you get shortlisted for the examination, it's upon you whether or not you want to go for the examination or not. But if at all you feel that perhaps there could be some scope here, perhaps I could become a mental health professional, or I could apply for the exam just to see where I stand for that matter. And that's how I went about it. I've given innumerable examinations just to see where I stand. And honestly, when I was back in class 9 or 10, I even appeared for FITGD examinations to see if I was capable enough to, sit for engineering or MBBS entrance examination. So yes, there is always a space to try your luck. Don't underestimate yourself, or do not feel that, oh no, I do not have a degree in this field, or I'm not good enough for this field. It's never like that. You always need to believe in yourself, and even if you don't, just हवा में तो तीर भी चलाने से कहीं ना कहीं तो लग ही जाती है. Okay, and like we discussed, having a basic degree in anything for that matter in order to become a mental health professional is possible. You can pursue an MSW, an MSc, or an MA if you want to further go ahead with a MPhil degree. Or MBBS goes without saying, of course, for people who are wanting to take up psychiatry. There is no way out of it. If you want to become a psychiatrist, you will have to have an MBBS degree. There's no two ways about it. Also, for non-medical professionals, an MPhil is mandatory as per the new Mental Health Care Act, and owing to the NEP and all the debate that's been going on, there is still no verdict, like I said, and hopefully the verdict will be in our favor. And MPhil will, for at least the professional courses, will not be scrapped. Stay for good. Very importantly, you need to use your experience in practice. Doesn't matter if you're giving an exam, or if you're appearing for an interview, or if you're seeing a patient for that matter. It is very important for you to believe in yourself and believe in your instincts and your experience. I just want to share a small incident that happened yesterday. I was seeing a patient. The patient was an adolescent girl, 11 years old, and parents came up to me with complaints such as, "Meri baat nahi sunti hai, she keeps lying, she's not studying," and her IQ happens to be 136, which is very high. An average person's IQ ranges from 90 to 110. And for a 11-year-old girl, an IQ of 136 is commendable. So these were the kind of complaints that the parents had come up with, that she's lying, she's not telling us anything, she's not studying, and she's very defiant. And prior to that, they had gone to a lot of other professionals, a lot of other mental health professionals who made several diagnoses for the little girl. When I saw the patient's family, when I saw the girl's family, I realized that there wasn't anything in particular that was wrong with her, and that there was no need for these professionals to make a clear-cut diagnosis for this girl. Going back to my MPhil days, I did end up asking my professor, "Sir, is it mandatory for us to make a diagnosis if a patient comes up to us?" He said no. He gave me a blunt answer, and he said that no, there is no need for any individual to make a diagnosis for a patient that comes up to you. Maybe they just want to come up and discuss their problems with you. What's the harm in that? Doesn't mean that you end up labeling them, because the problem with India is the moment you put a diagnosis, you end up labeling that person. And with that label comes a lot of stigma and a lot of prejudice. So that is something that, we're at that juncture in India where we want to do away with the stigma and this label, but there are not too many people who are willing to get involved. We have a lot of people, we have a lot of social media influencers and a lot of cases that come up, people talk about it, but there is very little that these people are actually willing to do when it comes to genuinely making an effort to let go of these stigma and the prejudice based. And you can go back, you can see this last 1 year how it's been, be it COVID or the death of SSR, anybody for that matter, and then there has been these cases about all these girls being molested. A lot of people are putting up on the social media regarding why mental health is important, but nobody is willing to genuinely take that first step, and it's going to be a very, very baby step to make sure that something can change about it. So yesterday when I saw these parents, I told them that this could perhaps just be an adolescent case. This could just be, she's 11 years old, she's stepping into puberty, and it's probably just something that she's experiencing. Peer pressure hai, and she's learning new things. She's developing physically, mentally, and emotionally. She's experiencing new things in life. She's having hormonal changes. So this could just be that. There is nothing to get too worried about it. You do not have to put a label to it to say, okay, this is what my daughter has. And if you go back to your own adolescent days, that's probably how you were. And in fact, when I was discussing this with my mother yesterday, she said the same thing. And I told her that, Mom, this was the first time when I did not use my counseling skills, but I used your experience to explain to these parents what exactly was going on with this girl. So when I say that use your experience and practice and use your instincts, believe in your instincts, this is what I mean. Your theory will work for you only as long as you're probably in the clinic and you just want to get away with the work that has come to you. You just want to do away with the work. There is a lot more to it. And I think we've elaborately discussed about the new education policy, so I'm going to put a pause to that. Moving on, opportunities and scope. So there are a lot of opportunities and scope. Honestly, when I was pursuing my bachelor's, I had no clue of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and I just happened to take up sociology and end up at Xavier's and complete the course. But towards the end of these 3 years, I came across Catalyst, and where I got the understanding of what could be the various future prospects for me. And Saurabh sir was kind enough to let me know that this is what you can do with your life. He has been a constant guide for me. And I think it is one of the major reasons why I've ended up here today where I am. And thank you, sir. Speaking of opportunities, you have a mentor right in front of you. You can always approach him. But when it comes to mental health, there are people who would want to get into various fields, starting from clinical practice to community practice to rehabilitation to establishing their own private, setup. There are people who also want to get into the academic field. So there are a lot of opportunities and there is a lot of scope for it. You just need to explore your inner instinct. You need to explore what suits you best and what field of work would suit you best. Whether you want to work on the grass at the grassroots level, or whether you want to move on to the academic field, or you just want to stick to private setup and see patients all by yourself. It all depends on where your interests lie. So if yes. This is one question that I have come across a lot of times, and there has been a lot of confusion regarding the UGC NET, the National Eligibility Test. Is the UGC NET mandatory if I want to continue in the academic field? Does anybody know the answer to this? Or does anybody have any idea whatsoever? Do you need a UGC NET certification if you want to continue in the academic field? And mental health. I'm talking about mental health.
Yeah, I guess so. If you want to teach and if you want a fellowship in the future as a junior research fellowship or a senior research
SRF.
fellowship, yeah, then I think UGC NET is mandatory. Yeah.
Okay.
Ma'am, I also
To be
see
specific,
that
I'm speaking of mental health over here, and I'm not talking of any other subject. I'm specifically focusing on mental health. So that's how I would like you all to think as well. Someone was saying something? Would anyone like to contribute to this question? Doesn't matter if you're wrong. Anybody. Okay. So to work in the academic field, usually for a different degree, UGC having a assistant professor in UGC NET is mandatory, but when it comes to mental health, they have different guidelines. You do not need a UGC NET if you want to practice as a clinician, as long as you have an MPhil degree, right? And as someone was mentioning, if you want a fellowship, JRF or SRF, that's when you plan on applying for a PhD in India, then you do need to sit for the MPhil exam, the UGC NET examination. Okay, going to quickly wrap this thing up and this is one thing that I have been asked way, way, way too many times, and I still do not know if I have the answer to this. But in an attempt to address this issue, whether therapists also need therapy or whether the job profile that we have gets exhausting for us, yes, it does. And that is, it's one reason why I've put this picture up saying that it's okay to not be okay. Doesn't matter if you are a mental health professional. You are a human being first, and that is what matters more. You're seeing your patients on an everyday basis, hearing about their problems, hearing about the issues or the crises that they're undergoing. Sometimes even happy things. You know, when you see your patients progress, that can also make you feel something, right? So it can get exhausting. It can take a toll on your emotional life and a lot of times on your personal life. I just want to share a small experience about what happened with me when I first stepped into MPhil. First month of my MPhil, towards the end, I got a case, and this case was of an individual with alcohol dependence syndrome. And the story that this person had told me about his life was so, it disturbed me mentally so much that I had to go back home and I had to call my mom up and cry to her saying that I don't think I can do this. I really don't think I am made for this because I am letting my emotions come in the way. I am letting people, I'm letting my patients take over, affect me in such a way that it will start affecting my professional life altogether. And if I am not able to detach my personal from my professional life, and if I'm not able to balance it, it will get very, very difficult for me to eventually survive in this field. And that's when I realized that therapy for any mental health professional is as important as it is for a regular individual undergoing a crisis situation. So, and which also motivated me to take up a thesis in this area. And my thesis was on stress, burnout, and quality of life of mental health professionals working in clinical, private, any form of setup, where I sent questionnaires to mental health professionals, psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, and psychiatric social workers to see what was the level of stress and what were the factors that were affecting them. And for a lot of them, it was about the profile, the nature of the job that they had that led to them feeling exhausted or emotionally burnt out. Right. So it is very much possible. Just because you're a therapist or a mental health professional doesn't mean that you have to be completely sane. There are days that you can, feel crazy or insane, or you feel like you're not up and about for it. You might want to just sleep on your bed or just stay on your bed all day long and worry about your patients or cry out about it to somebody who makes you feel comfortable. So when someone tells me, "Are you okay?" you can always tell them that you're not okay, even if you're a mental health professional. So therapy for therapists, it is exhausting, but I think at the end of the day, it's always worth it when you see your patients transcend these skies, excel in their life, and their happiness makes you happy. And this is what has kept me going all these years as a mental health professional. Yes, I can't hear you very clearly. Sorry.
I have a question for you. Relating to this slide, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So you just said that it is exhausting for mental health professionals themselves, right? So is it a possibility, for example, like a person to have a mental disorder or had been going through a mental illness at one point of time, and then later on that person chooses to be a mental health professional? Do you think it is possible? Because considering you mentioned critical thinking, assertiveness, all these are qualities or skills required to be a mental health professional. So it is highly possible that the person might be clouded by the person's judgment might be clouded due to his past experiences. And yes, exactly. So do you think, is it possible for a person who has been through that experience to guide someone else, that to logically and completely unemotionally, make it a critical perspective?
So thank you for this question. I think it's a very, very interesting question because what we fail to understand sometimes is something that I had mentioned in my previous slides as well, is that you should learn from your experiences and you should go with your gut and your instinct, is what I was trying to say. So when you ask me this question, whether an individual who has already undergone a mental illness or is on treatment for a mental illness for that matter, whether or not they can take up the profession, yes, my answer to you is yes, and I will tell you why. I feel they would be the best kind of individuals to get into this profession, given that they know what it is like. When I say empathy, we only empathize with them by putting ourselves into their boots. But they have already experienced, but individuals with mental illnesses have already experienced what it is like to have, say, paranoid schizophrenia or bipolar or any other, or alcohol dependence for that matter. Very recently, I was offered a opportunity to take a discussion, a group discussion for a group of individuals with diagnosed with alcohol dependence syndrome. Funnily, or in a very good way, the person who had started this initiative had prior experience of had previously been diagnosed with alcohol dependence syndrome. And the first thing that he told me was, because I have gone through this, I know exactly how the other people in this with the same diagnosis, with a similar diagnosis, feel or experience. And I think it's the best reason why I'm the best judge for it, why I would be able to guide these individuals the best, because they have practical experience of getting out of that illness. There is no medication, no other form of therapy that can help you as much as this would help you. This would help these individuals, the other individuals. Getting experience from someone who already has experiences is the best way to go about it. So yes, when you ask me whether individuals with mental illnesses can become mental health professionals later on in life, I would very much say, very confidently say yes.
But ma'am, when it comes to a person going through certain disorder, there are chances, when we say it's a triggering point, even when we say there is a trauma, when the same situation or similar situation comes across, it's a triggering event.
Right.
That person can again experience those things.
Absolutely.
So when a person, like I have an example, because I'm in my last year of bachelor's in psychology. So we were doing a counseling skill program. We have one of my classmates. So she's going through a lot of mental disturbances, and she's being like treated, therapies and everything, medications also it's going on. So when we were learning about mania and bipolar depression, as soon as the topic started, she started trembling. Her mental health decreased because that point was the triggering point.
Correct.
And she just escaped that situation and she went home.
Right.
So if someone if I am going, even if I'm cured with that disorder, but that can be a triggering point.
Yes, absolutely. There can always be a triggering point, and you can always, an individual can always go back into that phase. That is why there are several terms, specific terms that we use. We use terms like recovery, relapse, and sorry, I can't come up with the other terms, but there are a lot of terms that we use, right? So there can always be a relapse, remission for that matter. There can always be a relapse. But what her question was, whether an individual who has recovered from a mental illness, it also depends on the magnitude of the illness. Why? I'll tell you why. I had a colleague who was diagnosed with seizure disorder along with some form of dissociativeness, and right now she still has it. She still has the diagnosis. She's not in remission. She's not in recovery. She's still on medication, and she has pursued MSW. And right now, currently, she's doing her psychiatric psychiatric social work. And when I discussed this case with my professor back in during my intern days, he told me, Megha, she's going to be, just because she has the experience of it, she's going to understand her patients the best. Nobody can empathize with a patient, not you, not me. Nobody can empathize with that patient as much as she would be able to, because that experience altogether is different for this girl. Anjali, am I audible to you?
Yeah.
Yes. So it depends on the magnitude of the illness as well. Now, if you tell me that someone with someone with a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia with progressive deficits, for example, for someone who's not recovering at all, for someone who's gone into a phase where it's practically impossible to bring them back, then it would not be suggestible. But if you've experienced it in the past and now you're doing well, you would be the best judge for it.
Okay.
And you never know, with your friend, she might be experiencing this right now, and I think she has a long life ahead of her. And this experience might just help her understand what it is to be like, to, let's say, have bipolar depression or mania or whatever it is that she's experiencing. And in future, say 10 years down the line, she would probably be the best person, best professional ever, because she knows how it feels to be in that position.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've shot a lot of questions, but if you do have any more questions, I'm all up for it now.
I think we did a lot of questions, and this is exactly also like possibly the practical example of the skills required in a therapist, which Megha exhibited throughout in patiently answering all our questions, exemplifying it, and drawing a lot of insights, which was very critical for our discussion. Participants, thank you so much, firstly, for being able to contribute. Megha, you want to add some points?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I made an error once where I just got this message from a friend.
No
He
problem.
said that CBT and emotion focused therapy or any other therapy would be invalid without a master's degree. So you do need a master's degree to pursue a diploma certificate first.
Great. So yeah, I think we have been talking, interacting, discussing, ideating for over 1.5 hours now, and it didn't feel like. So that speaks up very loudly of the type of involvement all of you put in today. A Sunday, a holiday, but it felt like, everyone's really putting in their positive energies, and, the vibes was great. So thank you so much, everyone, for keeping that momentum today in the session. Megha, thanks a lot for firstly sharing your views, answering the questions. Of course, it goes without saying that even a 1.5 hours discussion, however elaborate, may not be enough for many of you, many of us. And we would request all of you to share your insights via an email to us, which I've shared possibly on the chat. I'm going to share that again once more if you require to. So it's like support@catalanserve.com. And we would definitely be, taking your questions. We will route it through Megha. She is the expert from the domain. And a very valid point that she made, that, therapy for the therapist. Being a trainer, being I would say, partly a counselor and a teacher, mentor. There have been so many times, and this is nothing special about, being in the pandemic, but even earlier, I always felt the requirement, to reach out to someone who can firstly listen to me, who can be non-judgmental, who can also share in terms of certain expertise. So that is a strong call out to everyone up there and out there who's working, slogging it out in the field with mental health and also in allied fields, to do, share your thoughts, your personal problems and feelings with someone whom you are comfortable with, or definitely, as Megha mentioned, a professional guidance can definitely be very helpful. So on that note, we would like to round off the session, and I would just kind of, sum couple of things from where we started at the beginning, that this is a session not to just listen and, jot down points and then forget each other. This is a session to start off with a plan. And that is one very important emphasis that we are trying to bring in from Catalyst, that from tomorrow onwards, we are planning to reach out to all of you either via feedback form or via some effective mode of communication, so that we get to know specifically your queries and we can create some templates very soon to support you in your aspiration. And definitely we will be picking the brains of Megha. We will be translating her experience if possible, that can support all of you. I was just mentioning to Megha before we started the session that sometimes in the mental health sector, we find the lacking of multi-sectoral approach, right? I have personally realized over the close to a decade of training students at Catalyst that sometimes people who are from non-medical and non-psychology background, they feel their background, which is apparently disconnected from mental health, that's as per the syllabus or the curriculum, might become a very crucial factor, in their selection for opportunities in mental health. And what we do a lot in Catalyst is we try to bring in association with any and many of your skills that could be very different from those required in mental health, or you might be completely disconnected from the nuances of psychology, right? So I've had students with backgrounds of engineering, 2-3 years of IT services, shifting to mental health. Management graduates, very interestingly, they have shifted to mental health. So these stories justify that your approach is not compartmentalized, but of course, to get into a professional capacity, there are certain norms and guidelines that needed to be followed, and those hold true because that is basically the differentiation factor, right? So I would urge all of you to think ahead, ideate, stay in touch with us, write back to us, and share your ideas. Very important. Again, it's not just about how you can get into mental health. It is also about how you can innovate with mental health, right? And that is one big field which, especially in India, we need to explore more than often. So thanks a lot, everyone, for taking your time out. Thank you, Megha, once more. You have been.
Thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. I think I was very happy that everyone's been so interactive and participative, and would really like to heartfelt thank you to Catalyst and you for allowing me to do this.
You're most welcome. It's a collective effort which we keep on mentioning always, right? And we don't want to stop here. And that is exactly what the final slide of Megha is. That it actually motivates you to start now, right? So let's do that. Let's explore the road ahead and work out tangible ways to create positive and constructive impact with the sector of mental health. Do stay in touch with us, support us, and let us know how we can help you the best. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay well, stay safe, follow and maintain COVID protocols strictly, and have a great year ahead. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so